Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, WWE announced 18 new wrestler releases.
WWE released a statement about those 18 releases.
We will give you the real reason behind these roster cuts.
And were some of the wrestlers released due to being unvaccinated? I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Never a nice thing to report on this, is
Nope.
it? And we've done it far too many times for our liking this year, but it's the news, it's the biggest story. It's one of the biggest stories of the year, WWE's mass roster cuts, and they've released 18 new wrestlers overnight. There were kind of rumors of this going about. I think WrestleVotes tweeted it about 5 p.m. our time, and then WWE ended up cutting a bunch of people. Various sources confirming these names: PW Insider, Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp. They came about an hour or two after the earnings call, the latest earnings call, Q3 2021. I'll just list the names to you of the people who've been let go from WWE, and we'll take the video from there. Jesse Kamea, Trey Baxter, Zayda Ramir, Jeet Rama, Oni Larkin, Katrina Cortez, Frankie Monet, B Fab, Ember Moon, Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, Mia Yim, Davey Boy Smith Jr. or Harry Smith, Eva Marie, Scarlett, Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, Nia Jax. So, bunch of different people, bunch of different roles, bunch of different states in their career. Some more surprising than others. Of course, a bunch of these people hadn't been on TV for a while. Some people just not being used all that regularly. But then you have people like B-Fab who've just been called up to the main roster and been on TV last. Jeet Rama was on TV this week.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago. Karrion Kross was apparently in the midst of being repackaged. Keith Lee had just got the Bearcat name and everything else. Mia Yim had just been moved brands, and she hasn't wrestled in a long time, since like last December and stuff. You got people like Grand Metalik and Lindsay Dorado who'd asked for their releases. You got Davey Boy Smith Jr. who hadn't even returned to television since re-signing.
He did maybe like a backstage video on WWE.com, and that was about it I've seen from him.
Yeah, exactly. So like the main takeaway for me from all these releases, and we've gone into the detail on these several times before, and we will do again today, is that the creative arm of WWE seems to be completely detached from the business arm in this regard, right? Because you seemingly in the middle of a bunch of different stuff with several of these people, and then it's like, nah, they're gone. Keith Lee repackaged, new name, off you go, pal. It's, a sucky situation, of course. You never like to report on people losing their jobs. It's sad for the people involved. I guess if there's any gleam of positivity we can take away from this, is that it's not April 2020. We're not right at the start of a global pandemic. It will theoretically be easier for these people to find work. But then the counter to that would be, well, AEW is looking pretty full. Ring of Honor's not doing contracts anymore.
Impact's just signed a whole load of people. Mike Bailey recently.
Yeah,
good
there
luck
you
to
go.
him there.
So, go for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, before I give my take on all this, I'll cover how WWE delivered this news in typical, WWE fashion, I suppose. 18 wrestler releases, taking us to over 70 releases from WWE this year, and I hate to say, but it felt like a bloody copy-paste job from them.
They didn't even post this on their official website.
No, they released a short statement to the New York Post's Ryan Glasspiegel. Say it with me, everybody. We wish them the best in their future endeavors. Right.
Go.
I've got to be very careful what I say here. A, for probably legal reasons for us here at WhatCulture, and B, because apologies in advance to our editor, because I saw this news last night, Andy, before I went to bed. And like you say, some people have asked for their release. I think that's good for them that they've finally been given that. And I've got to be honest, the first one I saw was Oni Lorcan. Yeah. And I thought, that's a real shame, because he's a real talent.
Good guy.
And he clearly has been used as sort of like, you can just now lose to people in NXT 2.0. But maybe this is a blessing in disguise for him. Like you say, he can go and actually, be appreciated for the phenomenal wrestler that he is. And then I suddenly realised, I was just refreshing my Twitter feed, and there's, like you say, PW Insider, there's Sean Ross Sapp, there's Brian Alvarez, there's all the people you would expect delivering this news. And I just tweeted, here we go again. And I think I was more furious about this round of releases than any of the others, which seems weird because, like you say, it's not in the midst of a pandemic.
The market's a bit healthier.
We almost should be used to this now. But I think the thing that annoyed me the most is on the one hand, like you said, you've had this earnings call and they've announced revenue for the previous quarter of over $250 million.
Yeah.
And then they justify it with something that you're going to say in a second. And it's people like Keith Lee. I don't know why Keith Lee hit me the most out of all this. Maybe it's because I have some tiny connection to him. Miller tweeted about this. We met him. He worked for us in WCPW. Yeah. He was one of the nicest wrestlers I've ever met.
You never hear anything but good things about him from other people as well.
Exactly. And, you know, we look at what they did to him on the main roster. It shouldn't be a surprise now, moving from NXT to the main roster and that, put him in a tennis skirt and making him a bear cat and rawr before he goes to the ring.
And all that,
but he throws himself into absolutely everything. And then, boom, you get rid of him, you get rid of his missus, you get rid of all the other people that we've talked about. I think the thing that frustrated me the most is because we're not in a pandemic, almost. Because, I mean, it's still going on, and we'll cover more of that in a second. Stay safe, get vaccinated, etc., etc. They didn't need to do this. They didn't need to do the other releases that they've done.
To do any of them.
But particularly now, crowds are back. You know, you're selling pay-per-view stuff. You are, you know, touring again. You have got vast sums of money coming into this company. And the justification for releasing these people, yeah, you've got a bloated roster. You maybe could argue, you know what, they haven't really done a lot of releases for the last 10 years, and that roster's just been growing bigger and bigger and bigger.
They have unquestionably signed too many people.
They've signed so many people just to prevent other people signing them, and particularly in recent years with AEW's rise. But they're just capitalist bastards, aren't they? They don't care how much money they've got because they always get more. And does it matter if some people get hurt along the way? No, let's just get rid of them. They don't care if people have uprooted their lives, if they've transported their families across the country for this. Bollocks to that, because all that matters to them is the bottom line. If I didn't have to cover WWE, I mean, the others probably would have been the breaking point for me. This would have been it for me. Sure. Because it's so infuriating. I love WWE. I grew up watching WWE. Yeah. There's times when I think, hey, let's not be so hard on WWE. I've still got there's the tiniest inkling of that memory of what I used to love about this company still there. And then they do stuff like this. And I think, what's the point in supporting them? What's the point in defending them? And what's the point of enjoying the product when you know what is going on behind the scenes? When they just have this big spread of people and they protect a certain number of people. Nothing against them, obviously.
No, of course not.
But, like you say, creative go, right, okay, let's dress carrying cross like Kwang. Oh, well, that hasn't worked. Let's just get rid of him because we're paying him too much anyway. They have this sea of talent that they constantly bugger up, and then they go, that's your fault, and you have to leave the company now. It's so infuriating. I'm sorry for banging on there.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's so much to these situations that you have to look at every single aspect of it, and that does take a while. Yesterday, the optics of this happening, specifically yesterday, are objectively poor because yesterday was the day of their Q3 2021 earnings call, like I mentioned there. And the real reason behind these departures, which is the third story here, I guess, via Sean Ross Sapp, email, John Laurinaitis going out to people, budget cuts. So, the usual one.
Bullshit! I'm sorry, Ben Roy. You don't have to put a funny noise in there. You can just silence it. I'm sorry for swearing. It's not that. It's $250 million in revenue they made.
I know.
I'm sorry. I realise it sounds like I'm having a go at you here.
And then send the email.
And then there's a reason why I've worn this T-shirt today, by the way. Then Stephanie McMahon has the temerity on that call to say, "Sorry, guys, I've got some bad news." The Miz got eliminated from Dancing with the Stars. You're about to release 18 people, you heartless bastard.
Yeah. I mean, it's all right there. I mean, the same earnings call and then the same earnings reports, they announced that their projected profit for the year, which will be another record-breaking year of profit, is going up by $30 to $50 million.
Kidding me?
So, like, the optics of it are objectively huge. And look, yes, okay, sports teams let go of people all the time and everything else. But when you come out and say, we're trying to save money here, pal, when you're letting people go and... doesn't fly. It doesn't fly
Make
at all.
$50-odd billion. That's a billion, sorry, not quite that much. $50 million every time you take that Saudi blood money, and you're there going, oh, well, we're really struggling to keep the lights on here, guys. What a load of crap that is.
It's like, it is all a consequence of the past few years of them signing too many people, and there are people on this list who are probably never going to be main eventers as well, but there are so many facets to this. I always default to a base human level, and the sad fact that 18 people who didn't need to lose their jobs have lost their jobs. I wish all of them extremely well in their next move. Hope they find happiness, fulfillment, big stacks of cash, whatever they're looking for in pro wrestling. Yeah, man, it sucks. We try to approach these from every single angle. People often get upset about that for some reason. I don't think you should. Yeah, you've said it all.
Yeah, and one final thing we should talk about. Our final story is intriguing and may slightly undercut everything I've just ranted about here, because if this is true, to a certain extent, I kind of support WWE because there's a report coming out from, again, the New York Post, Ryan Glassspiegel, who says a source within knowledge of WWE, of their operations, seems to suggest that perhaps one of the reasons some of these wrestlers have been released, and we're not going to name specific names.
Well, he names Nia Jax specifically.
Well, he names Nia Jax specifically. I was going to say, we're not going to name any others speculating-wise, but Nia Jax particularly, and perhaps some of the other wrestlers that have been released, due to the fact, and Fightful Select repeated this as well, that at least 5 of them were openly unvaccinated. And like I said, if that's the case, you know what? I'm on WWE's side all of a sudden, because if you're in this company at this stage, surrounded by people not getting vaccinated, and I'll probably get pelters for this, Andy. You know what? I don't care.
You're right.
Because vaccinations are something that we need to do. It's not some global goddamn conspiracy.
There's no microchips.
They're not sending 5G into it. Like, my phone still is running on 4G and dodgy internet when I'm dodgy Wi-Fi.
It's been vaccinated thrice.
Yes. It's not even just because, oh, well, I don't want to get vaccinated. I'm all right, Jack. This is about protecting the people around you, the elderly, the people with illnesses that will make them more vulnerable to this illness. If you're sat there, you're in a company that tours, that interacts, that literally grapples and breathes on other people on a daily basis, just get vaccinated. What? You've not had this issue previously. All of a sudden, you can't just turn around and say, oh, I'm not getting vaccinated. And this isn't some sort of beginning of this, I don't know, socialist agenda or something. It's just common sense, Andy.
You're looking after other people. That's the thing. It's not a personal choice. If your personal choice can negatively impact other people, that's, the most overblown aspect of all of this. I would say the WWE perspective on the unvaccinated thing is going to be this. You have opted not to have the COVID-19 vaccine. That means you cannot work in this building and this state where they have said you need to be vaccinated to go. You cannot travel here, you cannot travel there. That means as a company there is only so many things that we can do with you. See you later. That's probably their stance on all of this, right? That's probably where they're coming from it. There you go. Obviously the New York Post have named Nia Jax here from one of their sources. Fightful coming through saying there are around 5 people, perhaps more. Wasn't the sole reason for these people's releases by all accounts. No. It's not exclusive to that, but it's part of it. Man, this has been a rubbish morning, hasn't it?
I'm 33 years of age. I think I'm in a relatively healthy position. It can still, kill people like me. Yep. But I'd probably be all right if I got COVID. But guess what? I was first in line to get that vaccine because I don't want my mom, my dad, my relatives, friends of mine who are vulnerable because of their illnesses, getting this illness and dying because of it. And you know what? They don't have mask mandates. I don't want to get into all that or whatever here in the UK. But guess what? When I go in a shop, when I go in a confined space, I still put on a mask, despite the fact that I wear glasses. I should be first in line for not wearing a mask because it makes them steam up. Because it's just sensible, it's just common sense, and it's good for your fellow man or woman, I suppose. I don't know if that covers. But, it's just the sensible thing to do. And yeah, if some of these people have been released because they are, taking a stand and being unvaccinated, to a certain extent, I actually back WWE on that. Other than that, though, this is atrocious. And
it is, it's bad.
We should move on because we need to get to our Twitter questions today, and I'll try and cover things other than this horrific news. At WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. Just sort of a development from this comes from Chris too. Chris says, morning guys, yet another sad day for wrestling, unfortunately. But with the majority of wrestlers having their eye on AEW, do you think they run the risk of becoming too bloated and facing the same issue down the line?
I think that's for AEW to worry about primarily. But Yeah, it's a valid point. Do they have too many wrestlers? They already have people who struggle to get on television in AEW. So, we can't just look at this list of 18 names and go, here's 12 who should go there or whatever. There are people on this list who would benefit the company, certainly, and they should examine it on a case-by-case basis and go, this person could help my business, in you come. If they identify them and they exist and everything else. But yeah, it's a concern there, for sure. Look, there's going to be a time when AEW is going to have to let people go. It's inevitable. Yeah. Contracts are coming up. There's going to be people leaving that company, and we will analyze those decisions based on the information available to us, as we do for all the WWE ones, and take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've said time and time and time again, whether it be releases or just the ability to sign other people, AEW are never going to have, right, that's it, no one's coming in, one out policy. If Bryan Danielson becomes free, you move heaven and earth to sign him, even if you think, got quite a lot of people already on that roster.
They're going to sign Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens is a free agent, AEW are going to sign him.
And I personally think they should sign people like Keith Lee, who are really sensationally talented. Look at what they did with him in NXT WWE. But like you said, I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. And AEW have already got to keep an eye on the fact, I agree, that people aren't being featured. People pop up on Dynamite and they go, whoa, what great stuff they've been doing on Dark. And I'm like, I haven't seen any of this. You've just been missing for 6 months for me. So, yeah, I think that's the way they're going to have to carry this going forward. Let's move away from all this. Let's try and change the narrative on what we're talking about completely on today's news video. Adam Schmidt says, are finishers overrated now, Andy Murray? I'd like to see matches end with big moves and signatures and only see finishes in big spots when the moment feels right. Do you legends agree? Oh, thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. I feel like finishers are underrated, if anything, in this wrestling landscape, particularly for the reasons that you've basically described. I think, I agree. There's too many false finishes for me in certain styles of modern wrestling. Part of the reason I personally got burned out on the New Japan house style and the previous NXT house style was because of that. It was like, the end doesn't necessarily mean the end anymore. So yes, I think that is one way that wrestling has evolved for the worse in 2021. I like wrestlers like Bryan Danielson who have 19 different ways they can end a match. I like stuff like that, and I think that's a cool way of presenting it. But like, if I'm watching Tetsuya Naito in New Japan these days, and he hits that first Destino, I know I've got like another 2 or 3 to go before it's actually over. So I agree. I think this is it's a devolution. It's not good. I agree.
I think it speaks volumes that there are people talking about Hangman Page in Full Gear, and is this the moment he kicks out the one-winged angel? And that the fact that he could, people are saying, oh no, we need to save that. That's such a sacred cow that he doesn't necessarily need that to elevate him. That can be used. It's almost like ending the Undertaker's streak almost in terms of elevating someone else. I agree. Finisher spamming too much. And I'd like to see some matches just end with a decent. I was so shocked when Drew McIntyre beat Orton with a backslide at SummerSlam, because I've been trained to think, he's got to hit 8 claymores to put that guy down. So, right, final question, speaking of Full Gear, comes from Leroy W, who says, I don't want to focus on the unfortunate events of yesterday, so I'll go a different route. Do you think Full Gear will be a good time for Kip Sabian to return to finally confront Miro, of course, in that Eliminator final?
Oh, poor Kip Sabian, man. He got battered by poor Miro, didn't he? Interesting one to consider. I think that, with all due respect to Kip Sabian, who I like as a performer, I think that Miro's probably going to have bigger fish to fry.
I agree, unfortunately.
I think he's going to beat Bryan Danielson and be Hangman Page's first world title opponent. So because of that, I don't think so. But they might go back to that story in the future. Maybe
like Following Winter is Coming or something, where I sense he's probably going to get that title shot. But I can't call that Miro-Danielson match. I can't wait for that next weekend. For today's and finally, I'm not going to put a silly image on or a stupid tweet or anything like that. Just doesn't feel the right time. I'm just going to say, if you're a fan of one of these wrestlers that's got released now or previously, go and support them, go and buy their merch, go and do whatever you can, because they've woken up today without a job. I know some of them got short clauses and stuff, and they are already looking into getting bookings elsewhere, but go and support them, because it's just crap. It's just a bad day for wrestling yet again, courtesy of WWE. Let us know your thoughts on everything we've discussed in the comment section below. Play nice, everyone, please. I know I've ranted here and just got on my soapbox a little bit, but honestly, it was too much for me, brother. And you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. Watch there, follow both of us. Follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for have a nice weekend.
Yeah, follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, as I said. And make sure you check out WhatCulture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from. The conversation will continue on there while we try and preview SmackDown and Rampage. And of course, we'll have a special dedicated episode talking all about these releases later on today as well. But for now, my thanks, Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.